I'm 1 year old, sitting in a salon, getting my ears pierced. I'm screaming. And my mother is pulling out a bag of chocolates from her purse and showing me. And I have a reaction where my eyes go wide and I immediately stop crying and I grab them and I am self-soothed. This is a story my mother has told several times. And I was reflecting on it the other day and thinking this is sort of one of the roots of emotional eating for many people. When we grow up in homes where our emotions aren't allowed to have an energetic completion and they aren't named or validated. So in these sort of generational patterns where there's a discomfort around having authentic emotion, we can grow up and end up in relationships with other people that are similarly codependent. So you can develop a codependent relationship with food where you numb out with it, or with alcohol or cannabis, or even online gaming, any sort of behavior that is a numbing effect. When we can also develop a codependent relationship with a partner that is similarly so reinforcing this lack of validation, this lack of naming, this lack of energetic completion. And that can show up, for example, sitting on a couch together every night, watching Netflix, and never really going deep into conversation about what is actually going on internally for each person. And sometimes you can end up with people who aren't even able to access that within themselves, and they say, oh, that's low vibe, or I don't want to talk about things that are, unpleasant. Let's just, watch ridiculous shows and pretend everything is wonderful all the time. And when something's uncomfortable, either they leave or they will have numbing out behaviors. So in relationship, this can also manifest as not being able to, communicate how we're doing, our actual emotions. And that can be because we don't actually know what our emotions are. And again, that goes back to those earlier patterns of not having them named and validated as children. So suddenly we're adults and we're expected to be like, I know exactly how I'm feeling. I know exactly how I'm going to handle it. I know exactly how I'm going to communicate it in a healthy way, right? That's a lot to suddenly throw at somebody as an adult. And it's also seen as a moral failing not to have these skills. And it's seen as a moral failing to have behaviors like disordered eating, emotional eating. But there's so much more to those stories, right? And they often are just the root. They're often like a symptom or a pattern of a larger root issue, which is often just family patterns. So in relationship, if you don't know how you're actually feeling, it becomes very difficult to have healthy dynamics with people. You might just have this overwhelm, this confusion, this sort of chaotic stewing of emotion, and you don't know what it is. And it's so easy to be like, it's me, it's my thing. Is it the relationship? Is it my external stuff? Is it my work? It's like, what is it? I just have this dysregulation. And if you've grown up with chronic dysregulation as your natural state of being, it's very hard to even know when you're like identify dysregulation. You're just always dysregulated. And people who are in this chronic state can often, turn to things even like plant medicine, using it too often, because what it can be is like, I'm feeling this constant state of chaos, and this provides me like this immediate nervous system reset or soothing until what's behind that is still churning, comes up, and you got to go do it again, and you got to do it again and again. So that can also be a pattern of addiction. But it's a different video that I'm planning to do. So going back to this, not knowing how we feel. Not knowing how we feel is is the first step to having to identifying how we can have healthy relationships. So there's a lot of tools to figure out how you feel, and it can be a long process. So just imagine like a child having been grown up, validated since birth. That's a lot of years. So you have to be patience with yourself as an adult, that you need to spend some time learning as well. And you can learn it just like a little kid can learn it, right? So we can always rewire our brains and our neural pathways. So the first step of knowing how you feel is just recognizing how you are in your environment. That's the first step. Going straight into the body can be overwhelming. And again, it can be a source of chaos, right? So the first step can be just noticing your environment. And this is called proprioception. It's a somatic experiencing technique. So I'd love to just go through this really with you briefly. What you can do is just do this with me. And what I'm going to do is just notice my environment and become very comfortable with my environment. We're animals. And you'll notice that most animals are territorial because they become very comfortable with their environment and they claim it energetically. You know, a cat loves a tight box. Animals love places that they've scented. They track the space. They are familiar with the space. They're familiar with their bodies within the space and their relation to everything within that space from their bodies. So as adults and as humans, that's something we should be doing as well, to become very comfortable in situations, in our homes, in our spaces. And one way of doing that is through what I mentioned, proprioception. So I'm going to just use my eyes, just like an animal would, and I'm going to track the line of my roof to my wall, just noticing. It's very simple. You can do that with the floor, meeting the wall. And already as I'm doing this, the room feels smaller and I feel safer. And so you can also do this by just looking around the room, really noticing and noticing where your eyes might fall, and just noticing that for a moment. Objects that are important, and these can be almost like positions of orientation. So let that be an orienting spot for you. And you do this throughout the room. And I'm feeling my nervous system already dropping a bit and becoming more calm. So try this exercise before you have a conversation with somebody that might be a little bit, activating. And the next thing to do after this feels good for you is to just check in with yourself. And you do this just by scanning your body, and take a breath. And I'm scanning my body from my head to my feet. And I'm not changing, I'm not judging, I'm just noticing. And I might notice my shoulders feel a little bit like they're raised up, and I can choose to consciously drop them. And I might notice my abdomen is feeling a little bit tight, so I'm just actively loosening it just with my breath. Good. And so I'm already feeling dropped into the body. So this is the next step. After I feel this calm and this dropping in, this grounding. Actually, I'd like to say one more thing about grounding. Another great tool for grounding is really focusing on the feet. So I can take a breath in and send that breath to my feet. And as I do this, I notice the pads of my feet on the ground. I notice my big toe. And I notice the pressure on the ground and how the floor is meeting me, my relationship to that. I feel very grounded now, so I hope you do too. So the next phase is just trying to just tune in and understand how we're feeling. And again, if this is not a familiar exercise for us, it can be extremely difficult to know how we're feeling. So one way to start this is to name how you're not feeling. So right now, I'm not feeling anxious. I'm not feeling confused. And I'm not feeling joyful. So these are 3 things I've noticed of how I'm not feeling. Okay, so from that reference point, how am I feeling? So I said I'm not feeling anxious. From that reference point, how am I feeling? I'm feeling pretty calm, right? So this is the technique. So whatever word came up for you, use that as an orienting point to how you are feeling. And again, this can take time to work through or to even identify, and have so much patience with yourself. Even if you just get one word, that's huge. How you're feeling. As soon as you know how you're feeling yourself, you orient to yourself, you can start orienting to others. When you don't have that orientation to self, everyone else starts to become the identifier of your emotion. They tell you how you feel. They tell you how you think, right? And that's codependent relationships. That is seeking your identity outside of yourself, your validation outside of yourself. Again, this goes back to even starting with something as simple as not having your emotions named as a child. The example I gave of being soothed through chocolate instead of having the pain validated. That's just one example. There's so many different examples, so many different routes. Everyone's individual. I want to briefly talk about what could have happened in that situation. So in that situation, what could have happened when I was screaming and having this pain. I imagine you're 1 year old, you're just hanging out with your family in this salon, and somebody just comes up and you feel a searing, insane pain in your head or your ear. So this is chaos, right? This is like, what's happening? Big emotion, fear, chaos. So what could have happened is the mother could have come, held the child, made eye contact with the child, soothed the child, right? Through their face, the expression of their face, through stroking, right? Through their kind words, their soothing words. The child, really recognizes the voice of the mother as a source of orienting calmness. So these are all things that could have happened. They didn't happen. Past is past. As adults, we have to learn these tools so that you can become healthy in your communication and relationship with others. The other side of that is like forgiving all of those things that happened, right? And that's a totally different toolkit, totally different video, but focusing on this right now. So we covered the root cause of numbing patterns and how that it can affect adult relationships and adult dynamics, and how you can orient to yourself as a source of your own inner knowing, right? How you can feel safe in your space energetically, how you can name how you're feeling, how you can orient to yourself as your own inner authority. These are all the basic steps, the beginner steps. So if you want to go deeper with this kind of work, my information is below. And I'm going to be making a lot more of these helpful videos. I hope it was helpful to you. So please subscribe to be informed of when the next one is coming out. And I'd love to hear your feedback. I'd love to hear your stories. The more we share, the more we learn from each other. So I'm Sabrina Sundari, and it was a joy sharing with you today.